So I finally got divorced in 2004 and started going to church in 2005, and I could not get 2 minutes of anyone's time. I was finally introduced to Squeaky's mommy as a baby Christian, and boom, it was game on. This little woman just run up making the crudest, nastiest comments, and I mean, I never talked to her. I never in the same group, never even sat next to her on Sunday morning. The nasty comments from Squeaky, and she'd send her little friends over going, you need to go to the singles group and let them find you a man god. No, but they were already gone. They found me a man god, they'll find you one too. No, and they were already gone. Other women would be running up, did you do this? Did you do this? No, and they'd be gone. She didn't do it the right way. Do you have this? Do you have that? No, and she don't have the right stuff. She don't do it the right way. Well, duh, I just walked in the door. Then she started calling my house. Now, I can't prove it. I don't have phone records. But she had a very, very unique high-pitched baby voice. And I'd pick up the phone, and there she'd be. Wow! I called the office, and the old lady in the office would just snap at me and say, go get with your group leads. Well, there's nothing for a single woman, and I'm not going to the singles group. Now, I know you don't believe me, and maybe I misspoke, but the first time I ever saw anyone act like this was at my wedding reception. I'm introducing one of my friends to Scott's mom, and in mid-sentence she spins on her heels and walks away screaming, she's just looking for a mommy. What? What just happened? I mean, forget the fact that we're two women in our 30s, but who acts like that? And she did it again. We're over there, and she asked me if I'm on medication, and I start to say, yes, I have fibromyalgia. And she spins and walks out of the room, screaming some negative assumption. It's been 20 years of the she don't do this, she don't do that. And she certainly never wanted to go to church. They never used any religious terminology. Scott never told me about his Jesus. I didn't know. It's a good thing I wasn't looking for a mommy, huh? So back to the church. So they finally have this women's group, and I go 3 or 4 times. And twice I tried to ask a question, and in mid-sentence I got that just cut off in mid-sentence, and I watch them all turn their heads and close their eyes and sit there giggling. And then one of Squeaky's friends comes up behind me and says, you don't belong in the women's group. You need to go to the singles group and let them find you a man god. No, already gone. As I turned, she's already gone, ran out of the room, and all of them just sat there. Pastor's wife, all of them sat there, closed their eyes, turned their head, and sat there giggling. Between 2005 and 2009, there were 5 main churches, but dozens of churches and dozens of groups across even more. The period of time I spent in these places just got shorter and shorter before somebody'd run up and made some crude, nasty comment or start telling me I needed to go to the singles group and find a man god. And anytime I called the church office to try to talk to somebody, they'd say, get with your group lead. Every Sunday, we're busy, get with your group lead, and nobody would answer simple, basic questions. What would I get? You're wrong, I'm the only right way. Well, I'm asking. And I'm watching all these women just trashing on each other, just shallow, petty, superficial stuff. The only time I think I ever saw these women genuinely smiling or laughing is when they were trashing on each other, not just me. Then I'd watch someone get trashed to their face, and they'd just turn on the waterworks and fall into a puddle of excuses, and I'd watch them all sit there and turn their heads and close their eyes and sit there giggling. I mean, from the pastor's wives, the group leads, their own mothers. I remember this woman ran up and made some nasty comment in this group, and I turned to the group lead and said, why would she say something like that? And she says, they're broken, you're wrong, I'm the only right way. Well, you know what happens when I ask, right? Well, what's the right way? She wants it, she wants my stuff, blah, ha, 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 ha. I don't want your stuff. Why would I want your stuff? And you know where that goes, right? She hates it, blah, ha, 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 ha. 15 years. If she wants it, she hates it. Just wow. And when they weren't tearing someone down, they were just bragging on their stuff. And the co-ed groups were no better. Here's a perfect example. I go into this group and they make their announcements and break us down into groups of 4. And it's this couple and 2 of us single women. And this woman just kind of dominates the group. She takes over as the lead. And I'm watching this single woman and she's just sitting there with her head down, her hands clenched in her lap, not moving a muscle the whole time. So I go back the second week and that single woman didn't show. She knew. I didn't know. So they make the announcements and split us up. And this woman would just read the question and stare at me. Just stare. Until I started to open my mouth and then she'd run me over. And it happened again. She read the question and just stared me down. As soon as I could not even make a sound. Just as soon as I started to open my mouth, she'd run me over. And I'm looking around like, what's going on? And I look at her man God and he's just staring up at the ceiling the whole time. Yep. 15 years. 15 years of being run over in mid-sentence. Whether I try to say anything, whether I'm asked a direct question, just totally run over in mid-sentence. So there were 2 groups that I went to that I didn't go on attack, and they were both led by couples. I go to this group and this other woman's not saying a word, so I'm not saying a word. I was scared. You know, they went around, they made their announcements and went around the circle and everybody's just saying, I want. Well, I didn't know I was supposed to bring some wish list. There was no specific thing that I wanted. Just information, answers, 5 minutes of somebody's time. But they weren't even talking to each other. They're just talking at each other. The other group was the same scenario. You know, they made their announcements and went around the circle. I want. Well, I wasn't looking for a genie god to grant me all my wishes. Certainly wasn't looking for a man god. And I wasn't looking to join some clique of mean girls on steroids. But after surviving Scott, all I really think I was looking for was some answers to the evil in this world. And I spent 4 or 5 years trying to believe what I was reading and not what I was seeing. No one ever wavered. It's all about the man god, it's all about the dollar signs, it's all about the power. And they're still at it, total strangers. They'll just come up in the store. What do you want? What do you want? Well, what else do you want to kill, steal, and destroy? You know, all this new terminology, all these real simple words in new phrases that seem to mean the complete opposite. Like waking up in a parallel universe. From Squeaky and her morsels for Jesus, showing the love of Jesus, having a church family, right relationships, heart to serve, that's a new one. That's pretty new. How about God bless you? For 15 years, it's been that bug-eyed Carrie face and God bless you, like a curse word. Now, for 35 years, I never heard anyone say God bless you unless somebody sneezed. Now, I know you think I'm exaggerating, and there may have been one-offs, but it would have been so unusual, I think I would have remembered. Oh, and how about, they think we're hypocrites, but we're just imperfect people. There's over 7 billion imperfect people in the world, and I wouldn't call this hypocritical. The only one that makes any sense is just taking my whoopings. You know, all the pretty sermons in the world don't mean a damn thing when I'm being attacked by total strangers not 2 minutes later. Now, don't you worry, I got Jesus 15 years ago. But I guess that was a one-way transaction, because I spent 15 years hearing that the creator of the universe doesn't accept divorcees. So there you go. I don't have to have the right stuff. I don't have to look the right way. It's all about the man god. Gotta have a man god. And now I'm not dissing, but all the women I'd known in my life who would say, I was raised in this church, I went to this school. Well, they were drinking and they were smoking and they were living in the bars and nightclubs and they were living with boyfriend after boyfriend. They weren't living any different than anyone else. They certainly weren't using any religious speak. Or how about I do a hashtag me too, hashtag it's time, hashtag your man god's a whore dog video. I mean, I've got nothing to lose. Forget all the guys who would offer to help with something and then expect a date or sex in return and get all nasty when I said no. And I'm not talking money or stuff, I'm talking just help. Or how about all the guys who say, well, I got a girlfriend, but I don't like her. If something better comes along, Oh, yeah, pick me, please. But let's talk about the husbands or boyfriends of women I knew or friends who would hit on me. And these same women would say, don't tell her. She knows he's whoring around. She'll only hate you for it. So I just back off and quit calling. About the time I was fired for not sleeping with the owner while his girlfriend, my manager, was out of town. Same women, don't tell her. She knows she'll only hate you for it. But all the sexual harassment at work from single and married men. You know, when I'd go to HR or management and they'd be like, don't file a report, don't name any names, they'll only make your life miserable. You'll only end up losing your job. Well, I don't want anybody to lose their job. I just want it to stop. Oh no, just deal with it. Managers, leads, expecting me to be their girlfriends or sleep with them. I didn't take this job to be your girlfriend. And they'd refuse to train me or train me wrong or be screwing with my work or cutting my hours. How about all the men who would pit me against other women or their wives without my knowledge or permission because I wouldn't date or sleep with them? I mean, Dave and Vicky, it wasn't the first time, but they've just had different motives. And so many of these guys bragging on their labels. Now, I wasn't trained up to believe that men were just some kind of demigod entitled to their bad behavior and that women were the enemy. My bad. Now I know. So back to 2005 with Carrie. You might ask why I didn't play the office politics. In a word, Justin. Justin padded the numbers and transferred customers around, and month after month we were being threatened with our jobs if we didn't perform like Justin. And we all knew what he was doing. But Matt was totally unapproachable and Carrie was his golden girl. And finally enough customers complained and they fired him for it. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But I never had the chance. All she did was walk by and ask a question and I handed her the answer and she stomped her feet and postured and made that face. Bug-eyed, bared teeth, and ran off. And I'm like, what just happened? Now, you want a good laugh? I really did think she got her management training from some body language website. I had never seen anything like it. And it's been 15 years. Yeah, now I know. I mean, she immediately cut my overtime. Everything had to be pre-approved. And whenever I asked her for overtime, she'd pull whatever I was working on and make this big show of giving it to her girls and giving them all the overtime they wanted or needed. And she'd make that face. I learned real quick. Anytime I had a fibro flare, anytime I had finals coming up, I just asked for some overtime. And she'd pull everything I had from my plate and put on this big show. And I could just sit there and doze between calls and walk out the door at 3:30. Vacations were another example. She just refused vacation time for no reason. A couple of times I confirmed with other team leads that there was nobody off, and she'd refuse and just make that face. And she'd withhold information. Early on, I was like, just tell me, Carrie. Just tell me what you want. And she just lit up and ran in the back laughing. And a few minutes later, she came back out, wiping away her big crocodile tears, with Matt following her. And he'd stand there and scream across the department, I'm going to start firing people. I ain't going to put up with this shit. And he'd disappear and she'd be sit there laughing hysterically. Time and time again, I'd ask for what I need and she'd just make that face. And I'd sit there and just wait a week or more for the information I needed to do my job until finally Rose or someone would come out of the back and say, well, just do this. Okay, thanks. That's what I was waiting for. They'd disappear in the back and I'd hear her crazy hysterical laughter coming across the wall. Well, you know, you're paying me the same whether it takes me an hour or a week. Whether I get it right or wrong. I mean, I'm just trying to do my job, but I wasn't there to do a job. I was just taking my whoopings. And she'd send her girls over. What do you want? What do you want? Don't you want this position? Don't you want that stuff? No, I want to do my job. And then Carrie started the she wants him. I'd be trying to work with a coworker. And she'd be screaming across the department, she wants him, she wants him. Trust me, honey, I worked with these people for over 6 years. If I wanted anybody, I'd already said something. Didn't matter. 15 years. She was so desperate for my attention. She couldn't go more than a week without trying to start something. I misspelled a word and I could hear her over the wall laughing hysterically. She misspelled this. She misspelled this. So I just do more. I quit writing incomplete sentences. I had to give her something to mess with. Otherwise, she was trying to start a fight. But then she found out I had my house up for sale. The realtor calls and said somebody wants to see it during the day. I'm like, okay. Carrie takes a long lunch and I'm just enjoying the break. And later that afternoon, she makes some nasty cutting comment about my house. And I look up over that wall and she's making that face. Who raised you? And she'd send her girls over. You should do this to your house. You should do that to your house. See? I mean, this was long before Dave and Vicky. So early on, I went to Matt, trying to get assigned to a different team lead. You know, he's a new manager, and all he would do is stare me down. Would not respond. I mean, barely 2 words, every time. Okay, I don't want you to think I'm exaggerating. There was once. Carrie started the thermostat games, too. It'd be 65 degrees, it'd be 80 degrees, and everybody's complaining, so they locked the thermostat down. So I'm sitting there one afternoon, and it's 95 degrees in my cube. I go over to the thermostat, and it's set at 80. And I go back and ask Matt about it. And he's sitting there in his muscle shirt, and he leans back and postures and flexes his biceps and says, "But I'm cold," and just stares me down. Literally, what am I supposed to do with that? So I just walked away. You know, and Mary, new HR manager. Anytime I went to her, all I would get is that bug-eyed stare. I mean, she would not respond. Never, never a full sentence. And I thought it was just me. I thought she was just playing the Carrie games. But everyone who talked about her said she was totally useless. I was so desperate to get away from Carrie that I applied for QC. I didn't want to work in QC. I didn't want to work for Tracy. I mean, what are the chances are that I'd be working at the same companies as both of those street corner bullies? Here we are, another new school. And it never happened at school, never happened in between classes. But there'd be 5 or 6 older girls waiting until I got 3 or 4 blocks from school, and they'd come up behind, hurling threats. Yep, that was Tracy. And when they announced that position was filled, I went back to Mary and asked why I didn't even get an interview, and all I got was the bug-eyed stare. Not a word. And all Carrie did was laugh hysterically for a week. I mean, she was just giddy with her power. So I applied again on principle. And I got the interview, and I sat there with Tracy the whole time. Have you ever used this software? Have you ever used that software? The entire interview. You know I've never worked in QC. And I sat there and watched most of my coworkers jump in and play the Carrie games. People I was friendly with, my frenemies. And then Matt left, and it even got worse. I mean, this woman just spent a year or more pitting people against each other. And I was her favorite whipping post. It wasn't about doing a good job. It wasn't about providing a good product or service, happy customers, more customers. Nope, it's just all about the power to dominate and control, kill, steal, and destroy. If I'd have known, I would have been more like the Keep America employed crew. And we've all worked with them. You know, they're doing the bare minimum to collect a paycheck, spending all day surfing the internet, collecting 80, 90, 100 cases in their bed, just trying to look busy. The same ones complaining that I wasn't doing enough to clean up their work. The same ones complaining, I'm entitled to more money. I'm entitled to be an escalation point. I've sat here the longest. Well, go do it. I don't want it. I never did. You got no competition from me. I mean, I liked the work. I liked most of the people I worked with. We had great customers. And when I had a fibro flare or the nerve pain coming on and I could not focus for months at a time, I could do a good enough job and escalate what I needed to. And trust me, there were plenty of office politics long before Carrie, Matt, and Mary came along. You know, the power trips, the favoritisms. I figured that all out early on, and I didn't care. I just want to get along and do my job. And I should have just been sitting there doing the bare minimum to collect a paycheck and surfing the net all day. I wouldn't have had to help train new employees. I wouldn't have had to clean up other people's cases. And I wouldn't have had to take on extra projects. My bad. You know, Carrie, not everyone's desperate for the man, God, the dollar signs, or the power. But I got it. That's the only right way. So I finally left. And I started TMW. And even before Michaela and Dave got started, I went to HR about some paperwork, and all I got was that bug-eyed stare. She would barely respond. What's going on? We'll call her Mary 2.0. And then Dave. I mean, Dave was a woman hater. I'm thinking, why would they hire a woman to work with this man? Why would they have him train me, right? And he hated the church. He'd get these email prayer requests and just sit there cursing them without opening them. And then he'd delete them, and then he'd go stare at his deleted folder and just curse at these emails until the phone rang. 90% of my training was staring at the back of this guy's head, listening to him go, fuck, 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 goddamn, goddamn, goddamn. He'd say something and I'd respond and he'd get nasty. There wasn't anything I could say to appease this man. Then Michaela came over, and they were hanging on each other and whispering and giggling like little schoolgirls with a crush, right? And she spins around and says, I still go to church in the old neighborhood. And she stomps her feet and postures and makes that Carrie face. Yep. I hadn't thought about this girl in 30 years. I probably wouldn't have even recognized her. And if I had, I'd have pretended I didn't, just like with Tracy. It made no sense at all. Love the church or hate the church. They were totally united in their religious hate. And Avery upped the games. You know, they're spraying the perfume. Poof, poof, all day long. And all I did was go to ask my manager to ask them to put it on in the bathroom if they wouldn't spray it in the office. What did I expect? Okay, I'll look into it. No deal with it. I did not expect to walk in the office one morning and find her spraying down our office with her big old bottle of perfume. And what did she do? She postured and made that Carrie face and ran out of the room, and all her girls were just sitting there laughing hysterically. Cleveland Clinic was the same. Micros, they upped their games. They're following me around with the fart spray. I'd leave a server room and come back, and they'd bomb the server room. They'd bomb my cube. And this entire warehouse turned into an office. Customer service, all of them sitting there laughing hysterically. Bombing my car and my cube with this white grit. I mean, all my manager would do was make that angry face at me. And I went to the HR. Mary 3.0. What's going on? Just tell me. If you won't tell me, tell my doctor. I don't know how many people I gave Dr. Troy's name and number, and nobody would respond. I mean, she would not respond. She just sat there and stared at me. They even had something in the employee manual about BO problems being grounds for dismissal. But all I got was that bug-eyed stare, and she would not respond. 15 years. So, Software Answers ups the games again. The first week I'm working there, everything seems normal. I'm training with Heather. And as soon as she disappears and goes over to the other department, it's game on. The fake coughing and the fart spray, asking me questions and cutting me off in mid-sentence, refusing to respond to me. Anne. Joya kept sending me to Anne. This woman never once responded to a work-related question. She would not respond to what was going on. The only thing she ever said to me was, I'm entitled to the corner office. I've sat here the longest. Well, go do it. You're no different than the woman who's in there now. And HR totally blew me off. Totally blew me off. And Joya would come up and say, come to me. Don't go to HR. Come to me. They're just difficult to work with. I don't need to call your doctor. There's nothing wrong with you. I would tell you. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. We're a Christian company. But she was more than happy to take part. I mean, they're constantly trashing on my hair, trashing on my makeup, trashing on my words, trashing on my handwriting, my clothes. Now, I'm not dissing, but Joya wore the same 5 outfits for 9 months. She had her Monday outfit, her Tuesday outfit, her Wednesday outfit, her Thursday outfit. Every Friday, she wore the same tie-dyed t-shirt. And Tony wore the same construction-type work boots and Carhartt-style work pants with the same burnt-in wrinkles every day for 9 months. It was just shallow, petty, insignificant, stupid shit. And then Joya moved me next to Tony. And I'd go into work, and as soon as he'd walk in, he'd turn on that fan, and I'd be covered in white grit. black dress pants, my whole cube. I mean, the owners even came out and told me it was just dust. Well, I had 3 empty cubes on the other side of me, and there was no dust there. Just totally blow me off. And they left, and the whole department just busts out laughing. And they just keep up in the games. They're putting my shit in my food and laughing about it. Putting screws in my tires. And no one will respond. No one will respond to me. I go to HR, and what do I get? I get the little religious stories, the total blow-off. I was just there to take my whoopings. Oh, and that started at Software Answers. She should move to Texas. She should move to Texas. It's been consistent for 10 years. Just total strangers. You should move to Texas. Well, no offense, Texas, but I've seen what the nicest people on the planet here have to offer. I don't think I'm going to be moving to Texas anytime soon. Tony would bring in his laptop and sit there and troll his ex-girlfriend and troll the guy I replaced day after day. He 3 or 4 months in, he found this little 2-minute news blurb of the guy I replaced, and every day until the day I left, that video was up on his laptop. And he would just run it for a second and pause, run it for a second and pause, just desperate to find some new nasty comment to make about this guy. And they'd all just sitting there laughing. You know, he'd be talking about how his wife and kids deserve to die and how he'd mutilate their bodies, and the whole department just hysterical. And I mean, there were so many disturbing things that came out of this man's mouth, I can't even repeat. But Tony hated the church. Tony hated his mommy's religion. His words, not mine. I mean, love the church or hate the church. They're totally united in their religious hate. And you know, they couldn't say anything bad. They couldn't say they'd done anything wrong. It was just shallow, petty, insignificant, stupid shit. Then Tony started. Joya started. Tony's my favorite. He'll do anything I tell him to, with that Carrie face. And they upped the games. Tony'd be talking about where I was going, what I was doing, what I was wearing on my day off, what I had in my house. It was so disturbing. Talking about what I was feeding my dog, what I was making for dinner. And of course it would all be twisted and perverted, just trying to get a rise. I mentioned somewhere I was lactose intolerant. I'll guarantee you it wasn't in the office. It was probably another specialist I was seeing trying to get a diagnosis for TMAU. But 2 days later, Joya brings ice cream in for the group. And as I go up to get my little scoop, she's making that Carrie face. And I go back to my desk, and a few minutes later, the whole department, I'm dying, I'm lactose intolerant, blah, ha, 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 ha. And I say, well, there's a pill for that. And they just get louder and cut me off. They're standing up and clutching their stomachs and falling back in their chairs and throwing their hands up over the air. Yep. Software Answers was the first place I ever saw that in the world. Where I'd ask a question or start responding to something and they just angrily cut me off in mid-sentence. And I'd just smile and take my whoopings. That was the same time I saw Heather, that Christian counselor, and Gail Mimi, whatever she goes by today. And I'd go into work and they'd be repeating what I was saying in counseling. I saw so many doctors, nobody'll tell me what's going on. Blah, ha, 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 ha. And I'd go to HR and he'd tell me some little religious story about somebody talking too loud in confession. And I still have it. I still have what I talk about in doctor's office coming out of strangers' mouths. How about Junior at the food pantry? Of course, it's all twisted and perverted, just trying to get a rise. Yep, it's the only church I ever found. Oh, and then Joya would tell me, Tony's entitled to make more money than you. He wants to get married and have kids. I'm a Christian. We're a Christian company. Yeah. This 20-something without a degree who's still in school is entitled to make more than a 40-year-old woman with nearly 10 years experience. I got it. So Tony's yearly review was coming up, and I keep getting these emails with a peer review form. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. Well, I'm watching them every day, just trolling people on the. I'm watching him every day troll people on his laptop for 4 or 6 hours. And then call QC over to give him the answer to what he was supposed to be working on all day. And then he'd spend 20, 30 minutes doing the job and go back to trolling. What was I supposed to say? You know what I wanted to say? I wanted to say, well, Tony's Joya's favorite. Tony will do anything Joya tells him to. Tony perfectly embodies the company culture. But I thought better of it. I didn't. I just went down the column, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, and hit send. See? Oh, and then Joya would introduce me to customers and try to make it like negative, like some little cutting comments of, Laura doesn't want to do anything but support. Laura is just a worker bee. Well, what's wrong with that? If there weren't any worker bees, who would you have to screw with? Who would you have the power over? And then they fired me for making false accusations against my coworkers. And Joya just sat there laughing hysterically, making that Carrie face. Said, well, thank you for not taking part in all of that. Well, you know what? There was nothing in the interview or hiring process, nothing in the company documentation that said I had to subscribe to or even have any understanding of your religious ideology. There was nothing in the job description that said I had to take part in your religious hate. So thank you. Thank you for making it religious every day. And I just walked away. It's the only church I ever found. Just digging for dirt, desperate for something to twist and pervert. All the way back to the Lauras and Sandys. You gotta tell me everything. What about this? What about that? Just so they have something to gossip about, and their friends, total strangers, have something to throw back in my face on Sunday morning. You know, just dangling this invisible carrot over here and digging for dirt so they can pigeonhole me over there. It's another example. I lived in this condo, and these 2 guys behind me never said a word. If we pulled in or out at the same time, they'd just wave and run. But then now they're all up in my business, asking about this, asking about my dog, asking about my dog's name, Sasha. And all I said was, yeah, I hadn't heard it used as a female name when I adopted her, but I liked it. And they literally just got bug-eyed and ran off. Not a week later, I'm standing in Walmart, and there's these 2 women behind me going, she don't know nothing about the president. She don't even know nothing about the president's family. Well, I'll bet good money I'd never heard the name Barack Obama in 1999. But I just smile and take my whoopings. I got dozens and dozens of hundreds of these over the last 15 years. The she wants it, she hates it, she don't do this right, she don't have that right, she's just, she. And since the August video, they've been on this loop. Maybe they didn't like her, she didn't like her, maybe it don't like you. And now I'm talking 7 or 8 times in a week or 2. Total strangers just coming up and saying the same thing and making that face. And I really don't go anywhere. I don't go that many places, right? You didn't like me? You'd have forgot about me when I left that church and the church. You'd have forgot about me when I left that job and Ohio. It's a religiously fueled terrorist hate group. They're stalkers, they're trolls, and they're entitled to their religious hate. And not one person would ever give me the time of day. How about housing? Oh, that would make a good video. When I rented this place, I really did think the trouble was the drug dealers next door. Trying to convince me he was the landlord's handyman, trying to get invited into my house, trying to convince me he was living with his sister and just had to take care of her because there was nobody else to. Just trying to get all up in my business, right? But no, about 3 or 4 months in, the landlady comes over to collect the rent, and she's sitting in my living room, and she says, you need to come to my church and let them find you a man god. I'm like, no, thank you. Her words, don't you want to be married? No. And as I'm responding, she makes this nasty face, turns her head, refuses to look at me, refuses to speak to me, and she just gets up and leaves. And it's been game on. See? Reality doesn't matter. Reality doesn't make for good internet. So the drug dealers are moving out, and she comes over to get the rent, and she's laughing hysterically. Oh, I'm so sorry to see them go. They were our best tenants ever. Best tenants ever. The church ladies always do me wrong. They were our best tenants ever. Blah, ha, 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 ha. Now, forget the fact that they brought bed bugs in, and that it sat empty for 9 months, and they had to work on it for 2 months before they could get it re-rented. Church ladies always do me wrong. The drug dealers were our best tenants ever. Blah, ha, 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 ha. And digging for dirt. Just digging for dirt. Asking questions so she can make nasty comments or brag about her stuff. Or digs at my lack of stuff. And trying to start a fight. Something as simple as responding to her comment about the weather. Yeah, it's hot. And she just gets snotty and try to start a fight. 15 years, the only church I ever found. And anytime the landlord was around, I'd try to ask him about fixing stuff around the house. And he'd be like, you gotta talk to Sue. You gotta talk to Sue. Now, winter's coming up, and the roof leaks everywhere, and the heat doesn't work, and the plumbing issues. And they're standing out there in the drive, and I ask about the heat again. And she turns to him and she makes that face and she says, I don't want you fixing her heat. And what did they do? They got in the car and left. So I stopped going out. I just usually leave the rent out on the porch, and so I don't have to deal with the church games, right? But I posted that August video and made the mistake of going outside when she came to get the rent, and all she's doing is just laughing hysterically. Not a word, just laughing hysterically. She's walking back to her car, and she pauses and turns and gives me that bug-eyed face and just hysterical laughter all the way back to her car. Yep. The only church I ever found. Oh, and after that August video, this old lady comes banging on my house. And she's talking away a mile a minute, and she asks me my name, and I say Laura, and she pauses and gets bug-eyed and says, Laura, Ann, and just stares. And I just stand there and watch her, and she walks off down the drive, laughing hysterically. That's what stalkers do. Gotta let you know they're all up in your business. Now, I wasn't asking the landlords to redecorate. I was just telling them what I think they'd want to know to protect their investment, right? I know they're bumping the locks and vandalizing my stuff and vandalizing this property. And I don't know how many times I would be leaving and Sue would be on the property. And I started turning around, and I'd come back 10, 15 minutes later, and here comes this gray-haired old lady in a red PT Cruiser. And Sue swears she doesn't know her. Are you sure? I think she lives right down there on 18 in Calico. Swears she doesn't know her. But they're in here destroying the house and destroying my stuff. Do you really think someone would be so desperate to have the power over someone that they would destroy their own investment? Well, it's not the first time. Let's go back to the condo. Spent 2 years in this condo going to HOA meetings. And the same woman wanted to resign from the board. There are over 200 homes in this HOA, and they don't have 6 or 8 people even showing up for meetings. The place ran itself. Dennis did everything. He didn't need the board members. And I did my homework, and I made sure there was no JOB, there was no power. All I had to do was volunteer 2 or 3 hours of my time every year to show up for a meeting. And no, as soon as I volunteered for this position, nobody wanted. Bully Boy and the old ladies go on attack. They're letting their dogs run loose, trying to start a dog fight, trying to make me get rid of my dog. Just stupid complaints against me to the board that never went anywhere. It was just shallow, petty, stupid shit. And then they send their friends down, throwing dog shit in my yard and got the wrong house, pissing off my neighbors. Just stupid games. So I'm out of work, got fired from Software Answers, I've got the condo up for sale, and I would leave the house for an hour or two, and I'd come back and the for sale sign would be gone, and they'd just take all the flyers would be gone, time after time. So finally I left. It didn't sell, the bank took it over, and I drove by there a year later before I left Ohio, and they had ripped the gate off the fence and destroyed the storm door. You know, I mean, these people were willing to destroy their own property to prove that they had the power to screw with someone. And I remember these old ladies complaining about their property assessments, about their property values dropping. Don't think I feel bad that that place sat empty for over 2 years and sold for less than a quarter of what you thought your property was worth. Nope, you won. You got the power. And even today, looking for rentals. You know, I'll show up and I'll get that face and I'll get the comments. And how about Teresa? I mean, I go to look at this place and she's just stringing me along and digging for dirt and bragging on all her stuff. I should have known. And then she starts texting me that she's put my information in an app. And she won't respond back to me. And I go out to the white pages and there's my personal information out in the white pages. Again, all over the internet. And then she refuses to respond for 5 or 6 hours. She says she's going to send my check back or send me a voided picture, and she never did. Just trying to start a fight. Just trying to get her eyes. You know, and immediately I would send her a text and I'd start getting these email texts, the spam. So a couple weeks later I changed my phone number, and then I wait another couple weeks and I'm sitting at home calling businesses to update my phone number, and immediately while I'm doing it, I start getting those email texts while I'm on the phone. First of all, I've always known this group has always had my personal information, all the way back to Squeaky calling my house, and Carrie going to my house, and Tony, this creepy 20-something, talking about what I've got in my house and what I'm making for dinner. And I could move to a new area, and everything's okay for a year or 6 months or 4 months, and then boom, it's at it again. Johnson City's a perfect example. I lived there for 9 months, no problems. Went into that donation center for 6 months, and no one ever paid me any mind. It was business as usual. All I had to do was tell that guy I was not interested, and 2 weeks later, the whole center went on attack. Immediately, I had neighbors hanging out with their cell phones pointed at my house, strange cars sitting in front of my house with their cell phones pointed at it. You know, these donation centers, they have your name, address, phone number, birth date, social security number. It's all there in that folder they hand around. And you know they're using I know they're using my information inappropriately. And the food pantry's the same way. You know, I know they feel free to give out my information inappropriately. And I know they're listening into my house, too. You know, I go into this donation center and they're talking about where I'm going, what I'm doing, what I'm saying and doing on my phone, what I've got in my house, what I'm talking about, what I'm listening to, what I'm watching on television. That's what stalkers do. They got to let you know they're all up in your business. Oh, I'll be walking through Walmart and the old men working at Walmart, they got to make some cutting little comment. They got to tell me they're watching me, talking about me, thinking about me. They know what I got in my house and what I'm doing and where I'm going. So I dug up some heavy metal, just some loud, obnoxious playlist. And I put my computer speakers against the wall and one on the floor and threw pillows over them and just let it rip, full blast. Immediately, everywhere I go, the Carrie face is gone and it's just shock. You know? Checkout lines, people are talking about having hearing problems and giving me that shocked look. I go to the donation center and they're talking about having hearing problems, asking me if I have hearing problems, and they just look at each other with that shocked face. So I let it go about 24 hours one time, and the shocked face disappeared and it's back to the snarky face. And they talk about what I'm ordering on Amazon. I mean, the guys who work at the shooting range, I'd walk in and they'd be mentioning what I bought on Amazon and making that face and talking about my pictures. You know, I've encrypted, I've got a new SIM, I've got a new SD card, got a new phone number, changed all my passwords. I even got a new phone over the last 2 years, you know, and they're still at it. I was finding my Google Plus account reactivated and my phone number added and all my photos viewable, and I just pull everything. I ended up pulling everything off the phone and everything off the internet, and I walk into the donation center and I get this snarky comment, "What have you been doing? Sorting pictures?" That's what stalkers do. Leave my phone on airplane mode 90% of the time, and they're still at it. I just smile and take my whoopings. When I first started posting videos, 4 of them sat across from me on the empty benches making this fakey cough and dirty smelly comments. I just put my headphones on and ignored it. Oh, and then they're saying, they'd walk by and say to whoever was working with me, "She can say whatever she wants, but nobody's going to believe her." 15 years. It's the only church I ever found. The donation center. That'll be another long video. Oh, yeah, and my nose is running. That's another game. Anytime my nose is running, they come circling like vultures. "Are you crying? Are you crying?" Nope, I'm not crying over you. So, back in September, this Sunday evening, I ordered this spyware detector, an RF detector, on Amazon. And late Monday night, I hear this car peeling out of the drive. And I go out the next morning, and sure enough, all the radio interference is gone. I've had this high-pitched squealing interference on my radio for over 2 years. And I've had 2 mechanics look at it multiple times. I've even had the dealership look at the car. But boom, as soon as I ordered that, just overnight, it's all gone. And I have radio stations I hadn't had in over 2 years. Oh, and they emptied my gas tank, almost half a tank of gas. Coincidence? Oh, and meetup groups, multiple areas. I told you about Mandy's Healing Hikes and Linda's Wild Woman book group. How about Gail's Special Circle, right? I go out there 3 or 4 times. Nobody speaks to me. Nobody asks me who I am or what I'm about. But they've got my name and they've got my photo. And boom, it's the Carrie faces. And they're entitled to bring their Jesus right on up into it. They're entitled to prove their religious hate. Yep, same old special. Now, I've tried all the expert advice online about staying safe online, using fake emails, different email addresses for groups, and signing up for stuff. I've used Magic Jack or Google or text numbers for anything not business related. But these stalkers, they're still gotta let me know they're all up in my business. You know, I've tried the expert advice, become that gray rock. You know, don't wear anything nice, don't have anything nice, don't do anything special. They'll get bored and go away, right? Nope. I mean, for years I wore nothing but a simple t-shirt and jeans, and they're still at it. As soon as this group catches up, they're making comments about my hair and my makeup and my jewelry. And you know, it doesn't bother me. I never felt the need to be special. I don't even understand the concept of wanting to be the only right way. And I certainly never wanted to have the most followers, but I probably do. And this goes all the way back to Carrie. You know, I had never heard of the analogy back then, but I never wore anything nice or new to work. I didn't take anything personal or have anything personal in my cube. I never talked about anything of any value or interest. You know, I just tried to be that gray rock. Tried to be totally uninteresting. And it didn't work. What did she do? She had a realtor take her to my house in order to prove that she had the power to invade every aspect of my life. And I just quit responding to people long ago. I quit trying to explain myself. It's just a game. I just put on that blank face and don't respond when they're trying to start a fight, getting their little digs in. All that expert advice doesn't work. This is a special breed of stalker, a special breed of troll. Whatever label you want to put on it, it's a special breed of hate. I mean, all the way back to 2005, I mean, this spread like wildfire throughout the church and work and businesses and strangers on the street, long before Dave and Vicky. Who else has the power to do that? Well, do you think if I'd been trained up proper to turn on the waterworks and turn into a puddle of excuses, things would have turned out differently? 20 years. If you count Scott, a grown man. But it seems that gray rock is the new special. So I start going to this donation center, and of course it immediately, she don't have the right stuff, she don't look the right way, trashing out my hair and my makeup and my clothes and my shoes. Just shallow, petty, insignificant shit, right? And so, the majority of these women have salon-styled hair and full makeup, and I'm looking around thinking, what do I need to do to prove that I don't want to look the right way? So I start wearing a nose ring. Just a simple statement, just something different, saying I don't want to look the right way. And what happened? Within 2 weeks, I walk in and all 5, 6 women behind the counter are wearing nose rings. I go in the back and there's a nose ring, there's a nose ring, there's a nose ring. So, I quit. When I quit doing my hair and wearing any makeup, just out of the blue I go in there and this woman says, I have to wear makeup. I have acne. Well, do whatever you want. Do whatever makes you happy. It's your face. Not kidding. The next time I walk in there, she's not wearing one drop of makeup. And 90% of the salon-styled hair and full makeup is gone. Well, follow me. Talk about me. Think about me. Look at me. Look like me. You know, it's just a game. Stalkers. And a couple of these women are still so angry and desperate to prove that they got more, that they got it better, that sometimes they can't even focus on what they're supposed to be doing. Well, good for you. You don't seem happy. You just seem angry and desperate to prove you're better than someone, anyone, everyone. 20 years. Count Scott's mommy. I'm going to tell you what, there is no person, place, or thing in this life or the next worth living like that. But you go, girl. You won. So now the last time I was in there, I'm sitting in this area by myself, and this guy walks up and he says, I'll just do anything to be loved, and makes that face. And I half expected to look up and see Squeaky standing there. Perfect Squeaky. Now, not the voice, but just imagine going to church and having a total stranger run up and make some crude, nasty comment, and then run off going, I'll just do anything to be loved. You know? And I remember her getting up on Sunday morning to talk about her man God, to talk about all the abortions he made her get. And I really did think she was just some angry, screwed up little woman projecting her issues onto me. But nope, it's been 15 years. It's the only church I've ever found. It's all about the man God. It's all about the dollar signs. It's all about the power to dominate and control, kill, steal, and destroy. So now I don't pretend to know anyone's story. But I think I have some understanding of those people I've encountered who have gone so dark or to some extreme to prove that they don't care that their church kicked them to the curb. They just so desperate to prove that they don't want to look the right way. But there's the difference. This is the only church I ever found. So do you know what I want? Do you want to know what I really, really want? I want to know what I need to do to ensure I don't spend eternity like you, with you. That's all I really, really want. Please, God, please. I'll just do anything. Anything.